Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing on the question of sanctions. So I see that China continues to buy millions of barrels of oil from Russia, but we don't seem to sanction them. I see that Turkey is involved, according to Bloomberg, between March and October of last year. Turkish exporters sent about $800 million worth of goods to Russia, including $300 million in machinery and $80 million in electronics. So what more can we do, or should we be doing, to send countries a message that if you violate the sanctions, there are consequences? Because the sanctions are only as good as their enforcement at the end of the day. I've been the architect of many of them. But without enforcement, they are meaningless. So, Mr. Singh or Mr. Lowry, can you talk to the China question? Why is it that we don't seem to sanction China when they are getting millions of barrels? I mean, this is not like, a super state secret. The world knows that they're doing this, yet we don't seem to sanction them. Is there some impediment?
So I'll try to start. So it is correct that China, India, Turkey have been a diversification strategy for Russian oil exports, and probably and other exports and imports. The issue will be is that China and India particularly never signed on to the sanctions regime in the first place, and so this is kind of the point about Mr. Singh and his team and the people at the Biden administration worked very hard on building out a coalition, and it was really difficult. But it wasn't perfect, and so you didn't get some economies to join in. And so the question then is, how do you then do it now? And it's hard to actually come up with mechanisms that don't create other consequences that are problematic. And so that kind of leads you towards greater diplomacy and working with countries that are slightly more adversarial towards us and someone that are actually slightly more friendly to us, but they are countries that
we have used secondary sanctions before. Mr. Singh, we've used secondary
I'm happy
sanctions before. We don't have to necessarily say if you don't sign on, you get a free pass, because then a lot of the world wouldn't sign on, right? If they can get the free pass without consequence.
So, Senator, I'll pick up on Mr. Lowry's comments. Unlike cutting-edge technology or foreign capital, in energy, we don't have an asymmetric advantage because of Russia's status as the world's second largest producer of oil and third largest producer of natural gas. And so we had to take a different approach, which was to say, how can we minimize his energy export revenues while maintaining a steady supply of global energy so we don't hit Americans at the pump, right? And so our first effort in this regard was, well, let's shut down.
China doesn't hit us at the pump.
So if Russia exports none of its oil to global markets and we don't have a replacement, the concern would be without OPEC plus or domestic producers filling the gap, we would see a spike in prices that would cause even more of an inflation problem than we were experiencing last year. And so what we've done with China, India, and Turkey is said, receive the gift of our bargaining power, ride the coattails of this cap, and insist to Russia that you pay no more than the $60 a barrel that we've set. And of course, we can reduce that cap to 50, 40, 30, down to the marginal cost of production for Russia. And that's the way in which we can gradually tighten the vice grip on Putin's energy export revenues without hurting Americans in terms of the cost of energy, the cost of food.
Well, according to the administration's own words, where they say that China is considering the possibility of sending arms to Russia, that hasn't worked out too well. It hasn't worked out too well. They're considering selling arms to Russia, which dramatically changes the nature of this conflict if they were to do so. So in my mind, either you are in a fight to win or you're in a fight to delay a long period of time. One last question. As chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I have an increasing view that the United States has to lead the creation of an economic alliance among like-minded countries that can provide a framework for cooperative action in response to military aggression, violations of sovereignty, economic coercion, and retaliation by adversaries. Mr. Singh is the coordinator of the international economic response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Do you believe that something like this, an economic NATO, so to speak, is something that could be done?
I think it's a fantastic idea to look at where our collective strengths intersect with the target's vulnerabilities and to move together, because otherwise we will be perceived as deploying the unilateral exercise of American financial force. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the shared defense of core principles that underpin peace and security. So I think your idea is very much on point.
Thank you. I understand the chairman asked me to recognize Senator Rounds.
Yeah. Senator Rounds.